Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be using products from Mixing Stamps to create a fun fall card. We're going to use the Coffee Philosophy stamp set for our sentiment and the Sweater Weather layering stencil set for our focal panel. And we're going to get started. And there's a fun thing about this stencil set. It's not only a stencil set, it's actually, you can use it for multiple seasons. It has a leaf, a pumpkin, a heart, and a snowflake, and these little bubbles. We'll use those later, but we're gonna get started by creating our first layer. And I'm gonna be ink blending on some Hammer Mill smooth cardstock. So I'm going to take and line up my stencil where I want it to go for my first layer. Now the interesting part about this is there's also in the set is a layering guide. And you layer this up with your stencil, or you line it up with your stencil, I should say. So you place your stencil down first, and then you take your alignment guide and line up right in the corner of it. That way, every time you do your ink blending, you're lining up in that same spot. All right, so we're going to start off with some Vintage Photo Distress ink for our coffee. Our first layer of our coffee, I should say. And I went kind of light-handed with that. So now I can remove that layer. I'll clean that later. Our next layer, which we're going to line up with our alignment guide. And it should fall perfectly into place. Puts the first layer of the coffee mug, the sweater, and her nails in. So we are going to use Crackling Campfire for that. And I do have some exciting news coming up soon. So I will announce that next week on Saturday. So you can join me back here for that. Go ahead and add our first layer of our sweater in. And I'm going to go kind of lighter hand with that. Maybe a little ombre, heavier at the bottom. Just so we have a little different tonality to our sweater. So that's our Crackling Campfire. Take this layer, move that to the side. And now we're going to take our third layer, which is going to be our knit and the rest of our coffee cup. So for that, I'm going to use Fired Brick. And again, I'm going to give it a little bit of a darker color up at the top. And then on our sweater, we'll go a little heavier. That's layer 3. We're going to come in with our fourth layer of our stencil. Line that up. And this is going to be her skin color. So I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to use Tattered Rose for her skin tone, the first layer. I will show you another version of this card that I did at the very end. our next layer. We'll come in with our 5th layer. This is our final layer of our focal, well, kind of our focal panel. All right, we're gonna come in this time. This does the shadows of her hand. So we're gonna come in with a little bit darker application of the Tattered Rose this time, so that it gives us a different variation in skin tone. Just like that. Now, our next part is our coffee mug. Little section there. So I'm going to add a little bit darker color in there. I'm going to come in with a little bit of walnut stain to darken up our coffee, where it has a little bit of a halo around it with those bubbles. And then we're going to add in our decorative element. Now you could use the pumpkin, you could use the leaves, the snowflake, or the heart, depending on which one you wanted to do. I think this time I'm going to do the pumpkin. So I'm just going to kind of press that into place. And for this, I'm going to use oxide ink. I'm sorry, not oxide. Unicorn white pigment ink, so that I can have that, get that white in there. And I'm going to use a foam blending tool to press that down. I can pick that up. All right, I'm going to dry this, especially that pigment ink. It needs to dry so we can work on the rest of our card. So I'm going to dry that real fast. Move my alignment guide. But you can see how the use of that alignment guide that they have in that set, how easily these line up perfectly. I decided after drying it to come in with some Perfect Pearls right before I dried it completely to add a little bit more shimmer and shine to the pumpkin with the white pigment ink. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that Perfect Pearl color and just brush over the wet, damped ink. And it's going to pick up and be attached to our pigment ink. And I can brush it vigorously away from the rest of our ink. And that way it adds a little bit more sparkle and shine to our card. Now you do want to really get in there and dust that off. And there we go. We're going to just get in there and just get it off. All right, so there we go. And here we're going to move on. All right, there's that. Now I'm going to cut this out using some deckled rectangle dies. I'm going to line that up where I want it to go. And then we are going to cut this out. I'm going to bring in my smaller mat, and I'm going to come in with some walnut stain and vintage photo and go around the edge. Just a little bit. I just want to add a little bit more to this. We're just going to add the walnut stain, I think. All right, now we're going to stamp our sentiment and add our finishing details, and then we'll start putting our card together. So we're going to pop that in, And we're going to get our coffee stamp set. And I'm going to stamp coffee as proof that mornings exist for a reason. And we're going to stamp that in Versafine Claire Fallen Leaves ink. It's nice dark brown ink. All right, let's pull in our other pieces. And we'll go ahead and put our card together. I've got a craft card base and some layers that I've already cut out with the same deckled edge rectangles. I'm going to actually add my focal panel to this piece that's cut at the same size, but we're going to offset the yellow. So we're just going to add that layer behind just to add a little bit more interest to the card. And then we're going to add this to our matte layer, making sure we line up our focal panel straight and have our offset going at the angle. And then we're just going to add that to our card base. Make sure that's going the right direction. And to finish this off, we're going to add some white gel pen highlights around our mug and on her little nails. And I'm also going to add some Stardust Stickles to her nails to add a little bit more shine. And add a little bit around our cup as well, just to give it a little bit of glitter right there. All right, here's a closer look at this card. And as I promised, here's a look at the first card I did. All right, you can find these products listed below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys, stay crafty.